Tennessee This Week from WATE's 6 on Your Side starts now.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Tennessee This Week. I'm Lori Tucker. Glad you're with us. This week, Knox County Mayor Glenn Jacobs joins us. Glad to have you here.
Thank you.
And we're here to talk about your budget proposal. You just talked about it a few days ago. It's obviously for the next fiscal year. And the highlight here, Mayor, you're proposing no property tax increase. The big question, how were you able to do that? I know you promised that during your campaign.
I did.
But it's a tough time right now. How were you able to make that happen?
It is a tough time. One of the reasons that happened is because we have an outstanding finance department who is able to figure all these things out. We have just wonderful people that work up and down the line in Knox County, and everybody realizes that in situations like this, what's happened is because of the way the state does property tax, we have a specific issue where our property tax is about actually down $9.6 million this year. Next year it rebounds, so we're in a much better situation, but things are pretty tight this year. Everybody realizes that, so we were just all able to work together to put together a budget that fulfills the needs of the people of Knox County expect, but at the same time does not raise property taxes. And a lot of it is also just a philosophical decision. You know, if you want to raise taxes, you're going to find an excuse to raise taxes no matter what your situation is. If you've made the determination that we're not going to raise taxes, you'll find a way to do that as well.
Got to be creative with it, though.
You do, yes.
What's your wish list? If you had all the money in the world, you could raise property taxes. No one would get upset. Yeah, like that would ever happen.
Yeah.
But what do you wish you could do?
Well, one thing, and this is not in the power of Knox County, but you know, a lot of our issues with infrastructure are actually with the state routes, just because, and it is growth, you know, but if you think about like, you know, we have capillaries mostly in Knox County as far as our roads, okay? The state has the arteries and the veins. Well, we can increase the capacity on the capillaries, but unless you do something about the arteries and the veins, you're still going to have those congestion issues. You know, and the state is doing some work. We know about the I-40/75 corridor, what they're doing there. If I had all the money in the world, I would accelerate that project. I would also work on some of our other state routes. You know, to just move things up and do things ourselves that the state currently does. But we have to understand too, you know, that there are, even at the state, you know, there are fiscal limitations and constraints what they're able to do. But I think ultimately that would be what I would do, is I would just say, okay, you know, we're gonna widen and redo all of our road system throughout the county, including the state routes.
People would be thrilled to see that with the influx of folks coming in.
Yeah.
You can really tell the difference, really, over the past 2-3 years.
Yeah, even going back, I mean, we're an attractive place to live. So even if you look back, actually over the past 20 years, we've seen significant population increase, which does cause challenges. But I would hope that people would also remember the folks that are coming here want to live here. And what that says about East Tennessee is we're a great place to live, that people want to live in. There are other parts of the country that people don't want to live in, and they're moving out of there to come here.
And then you have places like Choteau, where that's a big problem for folks with that 2-lane road, and all these people are moving out there.
And what's difficult, say, with North Shore is there's just, you know, we're somewhat limited in that, you know, the road where it's at, we can't really do a whole lot of widening. We have some projects that be taking place in this budget that will help, you know, but ultimately there's just a physical constraint of what we're able to do there.
I live off of North Shore and drive down, and I think, where could you widen that?
That's
there
the problem.
Is no way. I can see that.
So, you know, in places we'll put in, you know, turning lanes, and we'll widen the shoulder and do some of those things. But yeah, again, to really fix some of the issues, Hardin Valley Road's the same way. Those are tens and tens and tens of millions of dollars that would be required.
And years and years.
And years.
All right.
That's exactly right.
Let's move on, Mayor, to schools. I know you're proposing more money for schools, a little over 3% from last year. The state of our schools, is that enough?
So a lot of the funding is actually with the TISA formula that the governor put in place a few years ago. Often we judge government by how much money it spends and not the results that it gets. And I am very proud of our schools, because if you look at the results that they're getting, they're exceptional. We've seen just very significant, measurable increases in 3rd through 5th grade literacy, in 3rd through 5th grade math proficiency. You know, so I just, my hat's off to Superintendent Riswick, a lot of the changes that they're doing with the 865 academies at the high school level, and really involving industry and business much more than has been done in the past. And, you know, as mayor, I've come to realize that the key to everything is partnerships and relationships. And when you have those, it has the double bonus effect of being more effective, but also not having to, not putting the entire burden on the taxpayer, because you have partners that come along that provide resources and sometimes money as well, and expertise.
Well, and we've seen that with Project Grad
Sure.
in the past, which has evolved now into the 865
Right.
Academies. What is your end goal? What do you want to see with this? Because it looks like we've stepped away from you're going to college.
Yes.
Here's your scholarship if you're a Project Grad student, you're
Right.
going to college. Now it's maybe you need to think about a trade, thinking
Right.
what's a better fit for these kids.
Yeah, the schools have expanded, and I'm thrilled about this. They've really expanded their definition of post-secondary attainment.
Yeah.
So now it's enrollment. So yes, a traditional four-year university or a two-year university or trade school, or I guess community college. Enlistment with the military. We just funded a new position, which was Dr. Ryswick's idea of essentially, for lack of a better term, but a guidance counselor who will concentrate on students that want to enroll. So a military kind of liaison person. That was Dr. Ryswick's idea. I think it's great. But also employment for kids that want to go straight into the workforce, with the understanding that jobs today, you have to be pretty technologically, proficient.
Yeah.
So you're not going to be able to just go in and think, I have my high school diploma and I can go in and do a lot of these jobs. If they're good careers, you're going to have to get more training, more certification, and those sort of things. So they've really broadened their outlook to where it is not just college prep. It is now actually career prep and life success.
Yeah, we'll be watching that. I
Yeah.
think it's really
I'm
interesting.
very excited
Yeah.
about everything that's happening there. And then we're also doing our part. We have our START Center, which is our Skilled Trades Academy and Regional Training Center. Now we have some dual enrollment with some of our high schools and the Tennessee College of Applied Technology for the construction trades. So there's a lot of momentum in that area as far as the trades. And again, with the University of Tennessee, the state's flagship university here, we have that part of it covered. And now we see a lot more momentum surrounding certification and that sort of post-secondary enrollment.
And we always hear educators say, we want these kids to stay here, not take
Yes.
what they learn here and take it
Exactly.
to another state.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. It used to be when you were recruiting a business, they would talk about the site. Do you have the site? Do you have the building? Now they talk about talent and workforce. So not only is it imperative for us to have a great education system for our individual kids, our economic success and viability really depends on that at this point as a community.
Yeah. I do have to ask you about the Knox County Trustee's Office. Under state investigation, as we've reported, Knox County District Attorney General Sharm Allen recusing herself from this. What is your message, Mayor, to Knox County residents about being able to trust county government that you oversee as county mayor?
Yeah, so I actually don't oversee the fee offices, though they're independently elected. So the mayor
Still in the county.
Yeah, but it is in the county, but the mayor's office has no oversight. I can't really comment on that because it is still an ongoing investigation. I'll have plenty to say once that investigation is over. I think you hit the nail on the head, though. As elected officials, we have to hold ourselves to a higher level because the community does entrust us with their tax dollars and just their trust that we are going to do a good job. So that's something that obviously that I take very seriously. And as I said, once this investigation wraps up, I'll have a lot more to say about that.
All right, we appreciate that. And we're almost out of time, but I do want to ask you at this point, would you like to back any of the candidates running to replace you? I mean, we have two. We have Betsy Henderson, who just announced, and Larson Jay in the running right now.
Yeah, I'm not going to get involved in that race. I will obviously support the Republican nominee. I will tell you that both candidates are friends of mine. I've worked with both of them, and either way, Knox County will be in good hands going forward.
Wonderful. Before I let you go, I wanted to talk to you about the new multi-use stadium. We keep hearing, oh, the city, it's a city-county thing.
Yes.
What do you think about it? What does it need? What's it doing right?
So thus far, it has been an overwhelming success.
Yes.
And really, it's being talked about nationwide. I just saw an article from kind of a baseball stadium trade magazine, and they were just saying how awesome this place was. And they had doubts when all this was first proposed, and they're like, but it worked out. So at this point, it's just been amazing. The Smokies, their attendance is, they've always done well, even when they're in Kodak, doing so well here. The One Knox soccer team, One Knox soccer club, they had like 6,300 people at their debut at the stadium.
And people were wondering, is soccer going to take off here?
Yeah, which is huge. Yeah. So thus far, it's been a home run, and hopefully that continues.
Yeah.
But it's something that all of us can be proud of, and there's really, when you go to a game, there's a sense of community because the way the stadium's designed, there's just lots of public spaces, lots of places where people are just mingling and hanging out and watching the game, and that's unique. And the most exciting thing for me, though, is, we've already had some announcements as the city has approved multi-story buildings that are going to that area. And that was, for me, the most important part was I see the stadium as an anchor for economic development throughout that corridor. And that's what looks like it's happening. And, to me, that ultimately is what will gauge the success of that project.
Just keep building.
That's exactly right. Yes. And then, the jobs and careers that end up popping up as a result of this, that's ultimately what I'd like to see.
We'll be watching. All right, Mayor, thank you so much for being with us. Everyone, Mayor Glenn Jacobs, and stay with us. Our panel of pundits weighs in right after this. We're back in 90 seconds. Welcome back to Tennessee This Week. A moment ago, we heard from Knox County Mayor Glenn Jacobs. And now let's bring in our panel of pundits to break down what he had to say and perhaps add a little bit more. Joining us today, Courtney Piper, Michael Covington, and George Corda, who is in for Craig Griffith. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Let's talk about first, everyone, the budget proposal in a moment, but we're going to start off with what he had to say about the state investigation into the trustee's office. So what did you feel about those comments he made about Mr. Biggs and what's going on right now? It was almost a no comment.
From a political standpoint, he said the right thing, which is, I know nothing, I see nothing, because I don't have any control over that office. Now, ultimately, he's the mayor of the county, and he's going to have to take a position. There's no question. But the whole Biggs thing, I don't know if what he did was alleged to have done was illegal or unethical or just bad judgment. And the thing is, we don't know. One thing I've learned in my day job and communications consultant, I do a lot of work with attorneys. And I used to think when I read stories that I knew what somebody had done and I knew they were guilty or not guilty. And then once I got into that and I started working in that arena, I learned what I didn't know and what people don't know. So you've got to wait for the end of this. I thought Biggs's letter was very carefully written, and I don't think he helped himself with it.
Let's take a look at that really quickly before we go to Courtney and Michael. We have the statement from Biggs, who says, I followed established Knox County policies and procedures for expenditures and received approval for these hotel stays. It goes on to say, I have personally reimbursed the county every cent spent over the recommended maximum hotel rate. I also reimbursed Knox County for the gas allowance for the vehicle use in question. So really, everyone, it's that second sentence. I reimbursed the county every cent spent over the recommended rate. So you said you don't feel this helped him. If you had been talking with Mr. Biggs, would you have said just don't say anything?
Don't say anything. Don't say anything, because you can take that and pull apart every single sentence to make it rebound back on him to drive questions that he is clearly doesn't want to answer now. See, he'd have been better off saying, let's just wait for the investigation to unfold.
What do you think?
Yes, he shouldn't have said anything because this statement, he's putting the emphasis on the wrong syllable here. He's talking about some of the more minor things that the comptroller uncovered. And what we now know from ongoing reporting is there's a lot more major allegations that we're all wondering, are they criminal? Are they unethical? Is it bad judgment? So, you know, he's putting this emphasis on these very small, what are now very small and minor things compared to some of the larger allegations that have come out. So he should have said nothing until everything was finalized.
And you're right, George. I tried to press the mayor to give me a little bit more information or to comment by virtue of his office. What do you think he should do? Do you think he handled that the right way?
Well, you know, yes, these offices are not appointed by the mayor, so correct, he has no control over them, but he is the executive of Knox County, and as such, his words matter, and the perception that he wants to set forth for Knox County government matters. So for him to either say outright that, you know, what his expectations are for county government would have been great. He alluded to the fact that he wanted to hold comment until after the investigation was concluded. That's fine. But, you know, as the county executive, I do think that he has an obligation and a responsibility to Knox County citizens to sort of set the tone for Knox County government.
Michael.
You know, we talk a lot about Ed Schaus being the gold standard of trustees. And gosh, Ed Schaus ran a simple office. Justin's office looks like it's a little bit more complicated. Maybe the decisions that he was making were blurred because he had poor examples, but Ed Schaus was his example. So I often wonder, how does a person make the kind of mistakes they make? This was a mistake. I'm just trying to wrap my mind around, how did you make the mistake of ordering those 6 very luxury vehicles? How did you make a mistake getting a luxury penthouse hotel room when one on the lower floor would have been just as good? So I'm having a difficult time with the hubris. I'm getting a feeling that he just doesn't really understand the essence of being a trustee. And so that's what's troubling to me.
There's one question that each person in these positions has to ask themselves. Is this what I can do? And is this what I ought to do? And if it's something you can do, but you ought not, then you ought not.
Isn't that not smart? You know what's right, you know what's wrong when you take that office.
You use that term smart.
Yeah, not
Okay.
smart. Right?
Not smart.
Okay.
It shows that he doesn't think that the rules apply to him. For whatever reason, he feels like he is independent of the rules. They do not apply to him, and he can get away with whatever he wants.
All right. We'll be watching to see when this investigation continues. I know the momentum is going, and we may know something in a few weeks. Let's move on to talk about the budget, specifically schools, because the overall budget increases by only 3.05% from the previous year. And the mayor said, well, just because we're not spending a lot of money doesn't mean we don't have good schools. What say you, Courtney?
Well, you know, my expertise with this is within special education, and we know from a consultant report that was revealed earlier this month is our special education program has a lot of deficiencies. And as a matter of fact, students with disabilities, the academic gap between students with disabilities and students without disabilities has widened significantly to a point where these consultants called into question the academic trajectory of students with disabilities. So we know we have a lot of work to do in Knox County schools. And, we have a lot of work to do in Knox County schools. We also know that they are extraordinarily understaffed, at least when you're talking about special education. They identified that there was one caseworker that was managing 40 students, so a caseload of 40 students. You can't expect excellence with that. And if this is happening with special education, it's probably happening elsewhere within Knox County schools.
Michael?
I don't know that any amount of money would satisfy public schools. I think if we gave the public schools a blank check, children would still not be able to read at grade level.
You know what? We could give the public school system $7,000 extra per student.
We could do that.
Take
And
that
they
voucher money away and put it in public schools.
Would not be able to read. It doesn't matter about the money. If the children that are remaining in public schools cannot read, the rest of this debate is futile. We'll never solve the problem. George and I were having a debate before we went on to tape. I say the parents need to be at the focal point of the outcomes. First day of school, children step to the side. Parents, we have an expectation of you. Your child is getting a free education, and all the money we can find is being funneled into the schools. But we have an expectation of you as parents. We want you to make sure your child gets the outcome you hope he'll have. Don't rely on the schools.
That is not true.
We have done that for far too long.
That is not.
And it's not reality either.
It's not true.
We put the burden on schools.
I have my own experience with reading and my children, where for over a year in the school year, I raised concerns about, I don't think my son can read. I think he needs more specialized instruction. Something just doesn't look right. I would take his reading scores in. They would say, oh, that's just autism. We don't diagnose for dyslexia. Don't worry about it. And it wasn't until I got real aggressive with my advocacy that they then put him in a reading intervention class and then got him tested for a specific learning disability in reading and writing fluency, and then got him the support that he needed. And once that happened, you know, things got better with his reading. And oftentimes what we see in sharing my experience with other parents is that it takes this aggressive advocacy from parents to actually get your students the things that they need to read. There's not problem solving happening at the school level to say, there might be an issue here, let's get you some specialized instruction.
On a broader level, if you look at the greater population of students in schools, you can look back at data from the National Assessment of Educational Progress. It goes back 30 years. 35 years. Nothing has changed. 2/3 of fourth graders and 2/3 of eighth graders, roughly, could not read proficiently in 1992, and they still can't. So we're disgorging into society kids who are getting participation trophy high school diplomas who are functionally incapable of performing in a 21st century economy.
But is that a public school issue or private school, or is that all children?
That is basically a public school issue, because that's where the most
So the debt is only coming from public schools,
well,
is what
that's
you're
where
saying.
I think
We're
that's
going to have to leave it right there.
But
We're
the
out of
issue is
time.
parents.
They're going to keep talking.
It's
We'll
on
be right
parents.
back.
It's
It
on
is not
parents.
on parents.
It
It's
is on parents.
absolutely
They're
not on
ultimately
parents.
Stay
responsible
with
for their
us.
children.
We'll be back.
No.
All right, the conversation continues about reading, public schools, and parental roles in all of this. We're going to switch gears because we're almost out of time. This show has flown by today. And I wanted to ask you about the race for Knox County Mayor. We have Betsy Henderson, now Larson, and Larson J. Betsy just announced recently. Your thoughts?
Larson is in a really good position. Now, nobody should be unopposed, but he's in a really good. He's got a lot of money. He's got a lot of support. What I want to look at with Betsy Henderson is, okay, where is she going to get her money? Where is she going to get her support? And is she going to be able to differentiate herself enough from Larson J. to have people say, I'd rather have her than him, because he's not badly thought of.
He's a known entity.
Yeah.
What about you, Courtney?
Well, this is in the Republican primary, and right now there's these two candidates, Larson J., Betsy Henderson. And what I think is interesting is, will there be a third candidate? Because right now I think both of them just want to keep it to a two-candidate race, because that third candidate is most certainly going to pull votes away from someone. Who is it going to pull vote from? I call it like a Stacey Campfield effect. The reason that Stacey Campfield was able to maintain his seat for so long is he'd get gobs of people to run in the Republican primary, and by default, he would get the most votes. So I think what both these candidates want to do is sort of box anybody else out from putting their name in the ring, because just a two-person race makes things a little bit more streamlined.
Any thoughts on a candidate?
Well, this is the Republican primary.
I
I want
know.
to see who the Democrats
That's
run
what I'm
too.
asking. What do you think?
I don't know. We'll figure it out. We'll let the Republicans have their little drama, and then the Democrats will come in.
It depends on who wants to be taken seriously. I mean, where are they going to get their money, and are they well known enough to make a difference? And
All
most
right.
people in that position don't want to do it.
Michael, let's give you some time to weigh in.
I don't need much time. I think the third candidate that gets in the Republican primary will win the Republican primary. I don't think Larson J is thought of as highly as George does. I think a third candidate will win the race. And I don't even know who that candidate will be.
Wow.
Could be Michael Covington.
If it's me, I'm going to win.
I'll bet you a dinner on that.
There you go. Have your cash ready.
What kind of dinner? Lobster or McDonald's?
Hey, McDonald's is not, it's much better than people
Okay,
think.
on that
But it's
note,
inexpensive.
thank you all for being with us. George, good to see you.
Thank you. Good to be
You
back.
always make things lively.
Thank you.
We appreciate your joining us. Have a good day.
The views of guests on Tennessee This Week are their own and do not represent the views of WATE 6 on your side or Next Star Broadcasting.